Okay, this is number 16, and this is going to be a little tricky. We're going to have to find f of g of x and g of f of x and evaluate these. And this is kind of like what we did for our graph. Now, this was actually the inspiration for that worksheet I did. I got this out of a calculus book. So what I did was I expanded that to that worksheet, so it's the same idea. Except here you'll have to do a little work to figure out your slopes, but that's all right because you know your slope formula, changing y over changing x. So what I suggest you do is, because we're going to be using different slopes as well as values, and the values we can figure out also, it's probably best to write down your slopes first for the two different little segments you have for each function. So this is the g function. So we can figure out the slope. What's the slope from here to here? Well, we've got some points identified, so that's going to help you. And it's y2 minus y1. So 6 minus 5 is what? 1. Over, and then 6 minus 5, and 6 minus 2 is what? 4. So the slope in this little section here is 1/4. That's from 2 to 6. And then from 0 to 2, well, what's the change in y? The change in y is 5 minus 3 is 2, and the change in x is 2 minus 0 is 2, so that slope is 1. So now I've got my slopes. So those are the slopes. I wrote those in. Let's figure out the slopes over here. This would be the best way to approach this problem. Otherwise, you might get a little confused. So figure out your slopes and double check them if you want to write them down. You know, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And this, of course, is the point. So you could have written this point in as, just if you want to check it out, as the point 0, 3. So you're going to, again, 5 minus 3 over 2 minus 0 is just 2 over 2 or 1. So you check your slopes here. Let's check the slope over here. Now this point again here is the point what? 2, 0. So 5 minus 0 is 5. I'm going to write it over here if I want. Okay, so 5 minus 0 is 5, and 6 minus 2 is 4. So I can't simplify that, so I'll just write it up here as 5/4. So that's my slope there. And here this is the point 0, 2. So this is going to be 0 minus 2, which is negative 2, over 2 minus 0. So this looks like the slope is negative 1. So those are my slopes. Okay, so once I do that, it's going to make it a little bit easier. So first of all, I want to find A. I'll probably do this over here on a separate sheet here, just so you can see that. So A is r prime, so r prime is this one, so r of x equals f of g of x. That's r of x right there. So what does r prime of x equal? Well, we have to apply the chain rule. That's going to be f prime, right, evaluated at g of x times g prime of x. And these are our slopes. So the r prime of 1, we want this at 1, is going to be f inverse g of 1, g prime of 1. Okay, so that's going to be equal to f, I'm sorry, not prime, f prime, not f inverse, sorry, f prime. F prime, and then what's g of 1? So we have to find a value there. So this is my g function, so at 1, now this slope here is 1, so if I go up 1 over 1, at 1 it's going to have a value of 4. See, it starts at 3, but my slope is 1, so I go up 1 over 1, so I'm going to be at 4. So that would be just 4, so I'll put 4 in there. And then what's g prime of 1? Well, g prime of 1, if I looked over here, there's g, and at 1, g prime of 1 is also, the slope at 1 is just 1. So I'll write that in there as 1. And then what's f prime at 4? So what's the slope at 4? It looks like the slope at 4, and we're looking for f prime, so we're looking for f. The slope of f at 4 is going to be 5/4. So it looks like that's going to be 5/4 times 1 is just 5 over 4. Okay, that looks all right. All right, let's take a look at now the other one. The next one is, I'll try to see if I can fit it in over here. The next one is, I'll write it over here. S of x equals g of f of x. So that's going to equal, if I take, so s prime of x, I'll use my chain rule again, that's going to equal what? G prime evaluated at f of x times f prime of x. And we want to find s prime of 4. So that's going to be equal g prime of f of 4 times f prime of 4. Okay, so let's look at our graph here. So we're going to have g prime, and what's f of 4? Okay, this might be a little tricky. Here's f. It's kind of hard to see, but my slope is going to be up 5 over 4. If I go over 2, I'm going to go up 2 times that. So I'm going to go up 5. So I'm going to go up 5 over 4, up 5 over 4, which means I'm going to go 2 5 over 4s because I'm going to 4. So I go up 5 over 4 to 3, up 5 over 4 to 4. So I've gone up 2 5 over 4s, which is 2 times 5 over 4, which is 10 over 4, or 5 over 2. So that's going to be 5 halves, believe it or not. So think about that. Remember, your slope is 5/4, so if I start here, if I go over 1, I go up 5/4, see? So I go up 5/4 over 1, that's 5/4. Then I go up 5/4 again over another 1, and that gets me to 4, because I'm going from 2 to 4. So I got 2 times that, so that's 10/4, which is 5 halves. That's the hardest part, I think. Okay, and then what's f prime at 4? Well, that's easy. F prime at 4 is the slope here at 4. If I go straight up here at 4, I've got this, which is 5/4, so that's easy. Now, what's g prime? What's the slope at 5 halves? That'll be a little bit easier. If I look at 5 halves, that's 2.5. If I look at 2.5 right here, if I go straight up, the slope of g at 2.5 is 1/4. So that's just going to be 1/4 times 5/4. And that's going to be 5 over, let's see. Let me double check this. I think I did something wrong here. Let me double check here. F of 4 is 5 halves. That's no problem. F prime of 4, what's f prime of 4? Is 5/4. Let me check my work over here. I think I got something else before when I did this. Nope, 5/16. All right, so 5/16 is what you have. Because over here, this was 1/4. Okay, so it was 5/16, yeah. Okay. Okay, I hope that makes sense.